Good morning on the West Coast and good afternoon on the East Coast. Assalamu alaikum, salamuna tulata. Thank you very much for joining us today. First and foremost, welcome everyone for joining this very informative and important discussion that we're having today in Afghanistan. First and foremost, thank you very much to the Afghan-American Community Conference. The Afghan-American Community Organization that is spearheading this presentation. As you all know, the Afghan-American Community Organization first started off at this first 2015 conference and now has grown into, mashallah, a tremendous organization that is doing scholarships for young Afghans pursuing their dreams and careers, and then also doing civic engagement and empowering Afghan-Americans, not only here in the United States, but all over the world. I wanted to start off, first of all, my name is Boshmi Nasiri, and I am one of the board members for AACO. Again, a shout out to everyone on the back end for helping us put this together. Today, we will be talking about different topics. I myself am an immigration attorney in California, Northern California. I'm also a board member of AACO. I want to hand it over to my next panelist, Mariam John. Mariam John, can you hear me? Okay, I'm so sorry, guys. This is the first time that AACO and we are collaborating on that. I'm trying to let them in. Sorry, we're having a bit of difficulty. I'm running and I'm trying to let everybody in, but the platform. I apologize. I'm trying to let everybody else in. I think, there we go. I think I got it. Mariam John?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me? You can see me okay?
Okay, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Salam, everybody. My name is Mariam Mosumi. I'm an immigration attorney. I've been practicing immigration law for a decade now. I'm the principal attorney at Johnson & Mosumi, a law firm located in Northern Virginia. And I've been practicing specifically in the area of removal defense, deportation defense, humanitarian immigration law, as well as asylum and family-based immigration. I look forward to being able to share information to all of you today about how we can best help our Afghan friends and family members who are stuck abroad in this really horrific situation. And I'm honored to have been invited to be a part of this panel with very esteemed colleagues.
Sharifa John?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum, dosto, Afghanai Azizam. My name is Sharifa Basi. I'm also an immigration attorney. I work with the HME law firm, an immigration-based law firm in Virginia, Northern Virginia. I have been practicing immigration law for 10 years. It's my specialty. I am also originally from Afghanistan and have been through the entire refugee immigration process myself. And we've, along with Mariam Jones, Bujmi John, and my other colleagues here, such as Adam, we've been, I've been a part of the team that's been helping our Afghans currently stuck in Afghanistan. So I'm also happy to be here, and hopefully we can get to everyone's questions and best assist everybody. Adam?
Thank you. Hi, my name's Adam Bates. I'm an attorney with the International Refugee Assistance Project. We provide direct legal services to refugee applicants, not just in Afghanistan, but around the world. But one of our primary constituent groups has always been the Afghan community, especially through the Special Immigrant Visa Program. I'm looking forward to speaking today.
Thank you very much. As you all know, the situation in Afghanistan is constantly changing, and I know you all have loved ones in Afghanistan concerned not only for near and dear family, but the country as a whole. What I wanted to first mention, I know we have the event going from East Coast time 2 to 3:30 and West Coast from 11 to 12:30, but some of us have to get on other calls to get one or two of us, but we'll be back on by the event. What we're doing is 45 minutes of presentation, and then we'll leave it 30 minutes for Q&A. So I wanted to start off with, first and foremost, the situation, what we're seeing. I know all of my panelists, along with hundreds of other attorneys across the country, are inundated with calls, messages, Viber, you name it, and we're trying to stay on top of it and see what's going on, and we're getting information all the time. The up-to-date information that I have, and most of us, I don't want to speak for everyone, but myself, and I'm part of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. I'm humbled that we were able to coordinate where we had over 700 attorneys on the call to be able to advocate for Afghans here in the US. So what are we seeing right now on the grounds? The situations are very tough. I know personally, my clients have been tear gassed. They have, their little children, their ears are bleeding, and this is confirmed with pictures that I have. My colleagues can also attest to what's going on inside Afghanistan. So first and foremost, who's getting the priority? From day one, the priority was to evacuate the staff at the embassy, US citizens, green card holders, the translators, and anyone else that's in danger. Well, a few days ago, they issued this visa where you filled out the repatriation form, which I'm sure thousands of people and many of you filled out on behalf of desperate family seeking. There was no pecking order in that form. Anybody could fill it out. So what happened is they got inundated with thousands of people getting a hold of that and going to the airport. And in the mix, we got US citizens, lawful permanent residents. Those actually have documentation, and some of them are on the grounds at the airport trying to get in for 2, 3, 4 days. If they're lucky enough to get in, then they're taken to Qatar for processing. And what I'm hearing is that once they're in Qatar, if they're US citizens and residents, they're being housed in hotels for a day or two, and then the rest of the people are kept there. Now, keep in mind, the other people that are there, if they had all their documents done, so for example, many of us on the panel have clients that had all their documents done, but they were waiting for an interview at the US Embassy in Kabul. I personally had about 50 clients, so they're all ready, and so if they were able to get in and get to Qatar, they're going to be processed in Qatar. They're not going to be let into the mainland. For those who are US citizens and lawful permanent residents, I'm being told by a reliable source from AILA that they are within a day or 2 or 3 days, they're housed in a hotel, provided for, and then they're able to enter. I haven't had any of my clients yet go through that full process and get to the US, even if they're US citizens and green card holders. So when I'm getting inundated, my colleagues are getting inundated with calls of hundreds. I want to get my family out and get my family. Please understand, I'm not undermining the sensitivity of the situation. It is what it is. For those who don't have a legal avenue of getting out, it's going to be very, very tough avenue. I'm not saying nobody has gotten in. I'm sure my colleagues will attest in a few minutes that they may have had a few people get in. But the influx of people that want to get out is going to be difficult. I also just got a word about 2 hours ago that the Indian airline will start doing flights on the ground starting the 21st. And those people who want to apply for an e-visa, they can do that. So in terms of the cases that are moving forward from National Visa Center, whatever case are in Kabul, citizens, those are the cases. My colleague Adam is going to talk about the other programs that everybody's talking about. The other thing I just want to talk about is why it's important to do advocacy now more than ever. On the AILA level, again, the American Immigration Lawyers Association, they're pushing the Department of Defense, the State Department, and USCIS, congressional leaders to push for some sort of a humanitarian policy to get all those US citizens and green card holders in. Also to increase the buffer between the airport and where the Taliban checkpoints are that people are trying to get through. So everything is constantly changing, and whatever you're seeing as far as despair and all that, we are seeing the light because there are a lot of allies that are in the back end that are really, really trying to do that. And what you can do in terms of the advocacy on your end is, I'm humbled to see everybody protesting, doing the advocacy, reaching out to congressionals. A lot of the AACO members are actively reaching out to their congressionals and getting the community, please continue to do that, because the more pressure that we are able to put on the community as a whole here, and your neighbors and everyone that's saying, what can I do? What do you want me to do? Please reach out to your elected officials and ask for some sort of humanitarian parole, or some type of long process for refugees getting out. But at this time, I just want to reiterate that we are not seeing any massive evacuations of Afghans that don't fall into the certain categories. So as much as we would like to help everyone and get their families out, that's just not doable. If you absolutely want to endure the risks, because you have to endure the risks, I don't want that on me. Every time I send my green card holder and my citizen, they have to get out. So I said, the only way to do it is you got to go to the airport, be careful, have your children near you, stay away from the turmoil. If some of them are getting stampeded. And if those people have to get out, they do. But it's easy for me to say, most of you are not going to get out, so please don't come to the airport. But having said that, if there's no clear avenue for someone to come into the U.S., my advice is humbly just wait it out a few days and see what's going to happen. So we're also hearing that they may be increasing the security in the military in the next day or so. So maybe the situation will get better for those who have loved ones that need to get out because they're green card holders or citizens or SIV holders. I would suggest maybe going back tomorrow. With that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Sharifa John, to talk about the next segment.
Hi, everyone. So we've been getting, like Spojima John said, all of us have been getting an influx of calls. We've been flooded with calls, emails, messages all week from Afghans. We understand, we're Afghan ourselves as well. We we all have family back home. I know that everybody on this panel, and probably everyone that's watching this panel, has a family member or someone that they are desperate to get out. So please understand that we are sensitive. We completely understand the situation. This is something that we're all collectively going through together. So like Spojima John said, the evacuation process, they have priority categories. So right now their priority is to get the US citizens, the green card holders, SIV people, and people with approved immigrant visas. They need to get those people out, and they're working to get those people out. I understand a lot of people have been calling, if you don't fall into that category, a lot of people have been calling me like, if you don't fall into any of those priority categories, what options do you have? People have been calling me and asking for things such as emergency visas. There's no such thing as emergency visas right now. Everybody needs to understand there's no consulate, there's no running embassy in Kabul. They only have like a hangar consulate that's operating like on a limited basis out of the airport with limited staff. So most of the stuff that we could normally do as immigration lawyers to help our clients, we can't. We are very, very limited in terms of what we can do from this side. One option that I did want to discuss that I've been telling my clients that we could do for them is humanitarian parole. So humanitarian parole is not very commonly used because it's only used in very exigent circumstances. But I think the situation right now, the crisis that we're going through right now, warrants the use of humanitarian parole requests. The issue with the humanitarian parole request is that normally the normal route for humanitarian parole is that you would apply for the document here. There's two forms that you fill out. It's a form I-131 and an I-134. You do need a sponsor for this, or an organization can sponsor you for this form. It would go to USCIS over here. We would send it off to a field office or a service center here. They would, and there's also a filing fee that's involved with this $575 filing fee. It would go to the service office here. They would look at it, and then they would approve it. And then we'd have to fill out a DS-160 with the consulate in Kabul. This is the normal route for this. And then the applicant would go to the embassy in Kabul to pick up the humanitarian parole document or boarding foil to get on a flight. Now, since there's no consulate, there's no embassy in Kabul, that's, we can't go through the normal route in obtaining this document. So what we're trying to do collectively as immigration attorneys, since we see this as the only option for people who don't fall into any of the other priority categories, is we're trying to, number one, we're trying to get this document and try to expedite it. The approval on these documents, we're trying to get it expedited and approved, in a couple of days versus where these were taking a longer time to get expedited and approved. We had one client who was we had one colleague who was successful in getting it approved in a couple of days. But then after you get the approval, then there's other challenges that you're dealing with. So to, be quite frank with everyone. We haven't, I personally don't know of anyone that has been successful with using humanitarian parole to get people into the country or to get people evacuated. But it is an alternative that we're looking into and that we're trying to utilize at this point, because there's really there's no other alternative. There's no other route for us to get, people who are not in the priority categories, but who are high risk evacuated. So what we're hoping to do, and I think, with all of U.S. immigration attorneys across the board, what we're trying to do in terms of utilizing this avenue is we're all going to try to apply for this, and we're also advocating. I know I am, and my colleagues at my firm, we've been also meeting with our congressional representatives all throughout the week and bringing this up to their attention. What we're trying to push for is blanket approval of this humanitarian parole request for people from Afghanistan, and then also expedited approval. And the other hurdle that's, that we're also facing while we're trying to obtain these documents in the United States is the filing fee request. You can file a waiver for the filing fee, but then that just, kind of stalls the process. So we're trying to see if we can get our congressional representatives to perhaps speak to Department of Homeland Security, USCIS, to find a way to waive the filing fee for cases like this, because a lot of us are also taking these humanitarian parole requests on a pro bono basis. We're not charging our clients because, we are in a crisis. The circumstances are exigent. So the way that we're trying to figure, I guess the path that we have brainstormed and that we think would work here is if we get these humanitarian parole requests approved on an expedited basis, get the filing fee waived, and then get those documents emailed to us, like the actual parole document emailed to us, and then for us to send it to our clients, and then for them to show up to the airport with those documents. Now, aside from the challenges that we face here in getting the documents approved and putting together the documents, because even in order to put these requests for humanitarian parole, and there's forms, you have to send in evidence. Mind you, if you are doing this for a family of 7, the way that the form works is that each person needs the form, and the filing fee needs to be submitted for each person. So it is a lot of work. It's not easy. So please be mindful when you are consulting with the attorneys and they're explaining this process to you, that it is not something that can be done quickly. It does require a lot of work, and we do need to submit evidence with it. The only thing that we can do at this point is to advocate and, get our congressional representatives to push DHS to approve these, and, to kind of not adjudicate this with a lot of scrutiny, so that they are getting approved, and they're not requiring a lot of evidence from us, because a lot of the people that are requesting this humanitarian parole are people that are vulnerable and at high risk, and a lot of them have also communicated to me that they've burned their documents. Documents that we would use as evidence in a case like this. So the other challenge that we see on the ground is that a lot of people, aside from getting through the nightmare and the chaos that is at the airport right now, people are getting trampled on, and people that have even, aside, forget, we haven't even gotten into people getting in with these humanitarian parole documents, but people with green cards, U.S. citizens, are having a hard time getting in. And even, when they make it through the checkpoints, they're getting turned away. I currently had 2 clients who had their immigrant visas approved. They went in, they got through the checkpoints, and they got turned away at the last checkpoint because the person at the checkpoint told them your documents are not valid, but these are the same documents that they're sending us. So there's a lot of challenges on the ground. And I think one of the main reasons for the challenges that we see is because the people that are at the checkpoints that are looking at these documents they are U.S. military officials. They're not anyone, they're not consular officers. They're not anyone with, experience in looking at immigration documents. I think from my perspective, they're just given instructions on what kind of documents they should expect to let people in. And if, the document that's being presented to them doesn't abide by that, then they're just turning people away. So my concern is that even if if we're getting clients to get these humanitarian parole documents, the people that are looking at that they present these documents to, are they going to recognize that as a valid document to enter? So this is, something very, very new for all of us. And it's something that we're going to try. I think, and also it's something that we're going to push for, because like I said, for people who are not in the priority categories of, getting evacuated, this is the only other option that we see. So although this is something, like I said, very new and, it doesn't get used up a lot, or it's not something very, very common. I think the general consensus, I guess, across the board is that, it is most appropriate in a time like this, because we are in a crisis, and, it's the only way to get these people out. So we have to obviously do a lot of advocating and pushing from our side here in the United States in terms of communicating with Department of Homeland Security, Department of State officials, to communicate with their point of contact on the ground, to recognize these documents, and then to allow people with these documents to enter. I think based on what I've been hearing, I think the one thing that would help everybody is if we have some sort of order at the airport, because right now it's complete chaos. And even those people that are qualified to enter, such as the U.S. citizens, LPRs, and people with immigrant visas, the SIVs, they're not even able to get through. Because there's people who are showing up that don't have any documents, and that's what's causing complete chaos at the airport. So I know everyone is telling, based on the calls that I've been getting, everyone's been telling their relatives show up to the airport, but I think that is causing more damage than good at this point. I think that they want to evacuate as many people as possible, but right now the people that are qualified, that are on the priority list, they're not even able to get through because of the other people that are showing up without any documents. So we're all trying collectively to figure out a way to get everybody to enter with documents, so that they're not kind of like harassed at the gates, even though it is a serious risk in trying to get to the airport. There are Taliban checkpoints along the airport. And even when you arrive at the airport, there's mobs there, and people are getting pushed around, tear gas, shot, the shots are fired in the air. We've had clients tell us that they've been trampled, they've been separated from their kids, their clothes it's getting ripped off. This is not, to scare everyone, but this is the reality of the situation on the ground. And like Spujman just said, make sure, before you make that decision to go to the airport, keep all of these things in mind. So I think the thing that would help us all right now is if we kind of advocate for some kind of order at the airport, even though I know that realistically that might not be something feasible at this point, or something realistic at this point. But it's just like I said, even the people that are qualified are not getting in because everyone else is trying to get in. So humanitarian parole is an option right now. It's not something that nothing is guaranteed. It's not guaranteed either, but it is an option for people that don't fall into any of the other priority categories. And with that, I'll wrap up my segment and pass it to Adam, who's going to discuss the P programs.
So I apologize. I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. I have to jump off a call to get in with the Congressman Swalwell. Why I mention that is because I'm getting a lot of messages here. And to be honest, we're here giving a time where we're away from our families, we're away from our work, where we are inundated, all four of us, including thousands of other immigration attorneys. The topic here is immigration option for Afghans. We don't have a magic wand to make your family come here. And I'm seeing messages here that are saying, I thought this was here to bring Afghans. We are here to give you the real reality of what's happening on the ground. So I want to reiterate that the thousands of people that are calling me, Mariam John, Adams, Sharifa John, the situation is dire. There are thousands of attorneys, immigration attorneys, trying to figure out a way to get people in. So please keep that in mind. What we're here is to give you the correct, accurate information. And that may be not what you want to hear. That may not be something that's going to help your dear family, but unfortunately it is what it is. So please keep in mind that we are here to give you the best advice that we can give you. And at the end of the day, if you're watching this, it might not be what you were hoping for. And we're really sorry for that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Adam. And again, I'm sincerely grateful for the American Afghan-American community organization for allowing this platform to reach so many people. So Adam, with that, I'll let you go, and I'll try to jump right back in a few minutes.
Thank you. And yes, so first off, I'm not Afghan, so thank you for welcoming me to your community. And I can't express, I can't imagine what everyone is going through and what you're feeling right now, especially people with family in Afghanistan, or if you're there yourself. But I do think it is important to address this with the reality of the situation in mind. So my organization, as I mentioned, has represented thousands of Afghan SIV. Am I back? Okay. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. But so as I was saying, I understand the situation. I can't imagine what people are going through, but I do think it's important to address this, given the reality of the situation. So, special immigrant visa program. Oh, now it said I was muted again.
You're good.
Can you still hear me? Okay. I'm happy to discuss this. So the special immigrant visa program was created by Congress in order to provide a pathway to safety for Afghans who provided faithful and valuable service to the U.S. mission in Afghanistan and came under threat as a result of that service. The problem with the SIV program, and these have been long-running problems with the SIV program, it's not new, is that it often takes years to have your application processed through the SIV program. So if you apply to the SIV program today, you would be lucky to have a decision in 2 or 3 years. Congress has required in law that applications be adjudicated within 9 months. But the government is just out of compliance with the law, which we've been litigating against the government for 3 years. We've been suing them over this. But the fact remains that the SIV program is not a quick pathway out of Afghanistan. And that was true before recent events. It's especially not true right now, given everything that's happened and the shutdown or transfer of the embassy to the airport and just the lack of resources. The other pathways that we handle at IRAP are deal with the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program. So the U.S. Refugee Program is broken down into 3 different priority groups. Priority 1 people are referred to Priority 1 either by the United Nations, by UNHCR. You typically have to be out of the country for that to happen. By designated non-governmental organizations, meaning designated by the U.S. government, or by U.S. embassies. The interesting thing about U.S. embassy designations is those people don't necessarily have to be out of the country. Generally speaking, you need to be out of Afghanistan in order to be admitted to the U.S. refugee program. Priority 3 programs are family reunification, which we don't really need to go into here. There are other pathways to family reunification. But priority 2 is, which I think I've already seen a lot of questions about. The Biden administration announced on August 2nd a new priority 2 designation. Priority 2 is basically a refugee pathway for any group of people that the U.S. government designates a group of special humanitarian concern to the U.S. So on August 2nd, President Biden declared certain categories of Afghan nationals to be of special concern to the U.S. And these include people who have basically qualifying employment for the SIV program, but who have not done the requisite years of service. Kind of confusingly, that the years of service was just reduced from 2 down to 1 on July 30th. So it's our interpretation that to qualify for this P2 program, you now must have completed less than 1 year of service, or at least less than 1 year that the government recognizes. The P2 program also covers employees of American-based NGOs and media organizations. And it also covers people who are working under U.S. grants and U.S. cooperative agreements. The important factors about the P2 program are that it essentially does not exist right now. I mean, the program exists. It's on paper. You can go read it. But in order to be processed into P2, you have to leave Afghanistan. The U.S. government has not declared what countries it's going to use to process P2 people. So if you leave Afghanistan hoping to be processed under P2, it's not clear where you should go. I feel confident in saying the U.S. government will not process P2 out of Iran. But in terms of where people need to go, the government has offered very little information. In terms of support to get out of Afghanistan in order to apply, the government is not offering any assistance, and they're not offering any assistance to people once they arrive in that second country. So if you're going to go, if somebody goes to Pakistan or somewhere else in order to be referred to the P2 program, they're going to have to support themselves or find some other way other than U.S. government assistance for the months or years that processing generally takes. The other aspect of this P2 program is there are no self-referrals. So you cannot apply to this P2 program. You need to be referred either by the U.S. government or by those qualifying NGOs or media organizations. So again, I know, and especially given the rhetoric that the administration made around the P2 program and what they've said around the SIV program, they've gotten a lot of people's hopes up, I think, that these protections are in place and that these pathways are viable. But that's currently just not the situation. If you are on the, and I also think I think perhaps now the most important distinction to make is that there's a difference. It's important to keep in mind the difference between your ability to get out of the country safely and these processing pathways. These are two different discussions. And right now, our focus as an organization is almost entirely on helping people get out of Afghanistan. The people, we have dozens of clients who are at the airport in Kabul. That's a completely chaotic situation. As you've heard several speakers mention the lack of order, the lack of any clarity of who is being admitted to the airport, of who is getting on airplanes. It's chaos. And so to my mind, the most important thing that people can be doing right now is putting pressure on the Biden administration to get order at the airport, to ensure that it's not just U.S. citizens or green card holders being evacuated, that it is every at-risk Afghan, people who are in the SIV pipeline, people who are under these P2 categories, anybody who is at risk and meets the definition of a refugee, that is somebody who is being forced to flee their home country because of a well-founded fear. So far, that kind of political pressure from community organizations, from advocacy groups, from Congress, from the media, has really been the only thing, I think, that has pushed the Biden administration to change its behavior and to evacuate people and to provide any protections at all. So I really think a lot of this is going to come down to a political question, which is, can we convince the Biden administration to protect people? The administration has all the tools it needs. So Sharifa mentioned humanitarian parole. The president of the United States can parole into the country anyone he wants. When the U.S. withdrew from Vietnam in 1975, the U.S. evacuated more than 100,000 Vietnamese refugees to Guam, which is U.S. soil, and just paroled those people into Guam. The U.S. has used parole for Kurdish refugees from Iraq. They've used parole for Cubans, for Haitians. And Sharifa mentioned a lot of the formal parole process, but it can be even simpler than that. CBP can parole people in at the border, and they can waive any application fees or requirements. So the U.S. government has done this in history. The U.S. has proven its ability to evacuate large numbers of people during these kinds of military drawdowns. And I think it's important that people continue to pressure their legislators, to talk to the media. Your community has a lot to say, and your community has a big impact on what's happening politically. And I think it's important to direct that at the administration and at lawmakers to make sure that these protections are provided. So I'm happy to discuss the U.S. refugee program. I'm happy to discuss the special immigrant visa program. But I think it's really important for people to understand those programs are programs that take years. I mean, those are long-term solutions to this problem. Those are not immediate things that can protect people right now today. So I think the conversation and the urgency really needs to be around making sure that Afghans are evacuated and are in a safe location where any of this processing can happen. So thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to talk about immigration options for individuals who are inside the United States. I know this topic is a little bit farther removed from the conversation that we're having today, but before I do that, I did want to address a few things to kind of summarize what my colleagues have talked about, and also share some information regarding some of the advocacy that's gone on. The number one thing that is on every single person's mind right now is, how do I get my relative to the airport? How do I get them on a flight? And that is, like everyone has said, a very difficult question for any attorney to answer, because we're private attorneys, and the safety and security of individuals who are in Afghanistan, it really is going to be dependent on the individuals who are helping them there on the ground. So what we're here to do today is provide you with what the information is on the law, so that you're at least aware of what legal avenues there are there, with the understanding that there are some logistical limitations because of the security situation in Afghanistan. But first and foremost, really with the advocacy, I've seen so many people on social media, so many different organizations really stepping up to bring a lot of attention to what's going on in Afghanistan, specifically this flight issue, and also trying to bring awareness as to how we can make this smoother, how we can make this better for people who are trying to come here. Yesterday, I was able to sit in on a meeting with Congressman Jerry Connolly's office. He is my representative in where I live. And I was joined by Shakeba Murad. She's excellent. I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to be a part of her campaign, but she's launched that big grassroots campaign where if you text crisis to 52886, it will create a letter that gets sent to your congressman, to the White House, that makes a list of requests and demands that we as Afghan-Americans and other individuals want to see from the administration. Those types of demands include creating a blanket program for parole that Sharifa mentioned before. It includes designating Afghanistan for temporary protected status, meaning individuals who are here right now on a visa or without a visa. We want the government to give them the opportunity to be protected so that they can't be sent back to Afghanistan. We also were asking that they halt deportations to Afghanistan. So there's a lot of that that's been happening. And in that meeting yesterday, one thing I did want to share was that Congressman Connolly indicated any individual at this point who has a fear of leaving or living in Afghanistan and they fear for their life, they will take that information and they will pass it on to the State Department. So I know right now that there is a priority system for who's going to be getting on a flight, like Sharifa and Swishme John had mentioned. But congressmen in the United States are still taking that information. So if you have a family member who you know that needs to get out of the country, you can reach out to, at the minimum, Congressman Connolly's office. There's an Excel spreadsheet that they'll have you fill out with your family member's information, where they live, their passport information, anything that you can give, and you can, they will send it on to the Department of State, who will then process that. Again, like I said in the beginning, and like all of my fellow colleagues have said, none of this guarantees that they will get out of Afghanistan, but I know that everybody is desperate for a solution of some kind, and many people are trying many different avenues, and if you need to do that, that's fine. So at this point, that is one option, is reaching out to your congressman, regardless of who your relative is. They are taking that information. I can confirm that at least from Congressman Connolly's office. Also, another thing that the Department of State has announced is that they are going to be sending more consular officers to Kabul and to Kuwait and to Qatar, which are two additional countries that evacuees are going to be sent to for processing. They're hoping that these consular officers will help speed up some of the processing for those who have evacuated. And they're also hoping that some of the consular officers who are actually going to Kabul will actually help on the ground with some of that processing. So that was another thing that I just wanted to share. Another thing too, that AILA, which is the American Immigration Association of Immigration Lawyers. Sorry, I think I butchered that, but AILA, it's a big organization. All of us are members. They're doing a lot of advocacy as well. One of the things that they are doing is also asking for the administration to extend the withdrawal of the troops. And I'm sure you all have probably heard about that as a conversation on the news. My hope, just in my opinion, is that if that were to happen, that might make people a little more calm down, that the United States is not going to be going anywhere, and maybe they'll have a little bit more time to get to the airport. Again, this is all just policy, things that are being thrown around. Nothing is set in stone, but I'm just sharing with you the things that are trying to be done, because I know right now it's really hard for people to see any sort of solution, but there's a lot that is going on in the background. All of my colleagues here have been a part of various meetings with congressmen, various meetings with government organizations and officials, because we want that information too. And we're very lucky and fortunate that we're in a position to be able to help with some of this advocacy. But we're not the only ones who can do it. All of you can too, your friends can too, your family members can too. The platform that I mentioned earlier that Shakeba Murad had created, just that text messaging platform, that was amazing. So you can be a part of advocacy just by doing that. So what I did want to talk about very briefly is immigration options for individuals who are here in the United States. They are equally worried about having to go back to Afghanistan because of the situation there. The very obvious kind of relief that a lot of Afghans may have is asylum. For those of you who don't know what asylum is a protection that you can receive in the United States if you can demonstrate that your life is in danger in your home country on account of a protected ground. And you also have to demonstrate that your government is unable or unwilling to protect you. And I think it's pretty clear that in Afghanistan, that is the situation for many people who are here in the United States. Now, the one thing is, whenever you apply for asylum inside of the United States, you technically need to do that within 1 year of your arrival. However, there is an exception under US immigration law. You can apply for asylum even if it's been more than 1 year since you came, if you can demonstrate a change in your country conditions, which in this case, it's very clear that we've had a significant change in country conditions. You can apply for asylum by going to the USCIS website. There's a form, it's called a Form I-589, application for asylum and protection and withholding of removal and protection under the Convention Against Torture. It is a free form, there's no filing fee for it. I strongly, strongly encourage anybody who's considering applying for asylum to do so with the help of an immigration attorney or a pro bono services provider. Asylum is very complex. It is not a straightforward process by any means, but it is an option for Afghans who are inside of the United States who have a fear of return to Afghanistan. You can apply for asylum if you're currently in status on a visa of some kind, or if you're not in current status. If you're an Afghan who's been ordered deported from the United States, if you have an order of deportation, but maybe you're still physically inside of the United States, you would have to probably talk with an immigration attorney to see if you can file a motion to reopen your case. You'd want to move to reopen your case by showing that there has been a change in your country conditions, you fear to go back, and an immigration lawyer can absolutely help with that. There's also no fee for that motion to the court. It is free when it's based on changed country conditions. So that's a pretty obvious choice for a lot of Afghans. There's also some Afghans who may be here in the United States on a certain visa, and they need to maintain lawful status in order to proceed with some sort of work visa or some sort of student visa. If your visa is about to expire, sometimes you may be able to do an extension of status or maybe change your status to another visa category. If the time has passed, though, to do that, sometimes you can file it late with the explanation that there's been this change and there's changes in your country that prevented you from filing earlier. So that's one option. And then one more limited option. This may not apply to everybody, but if you've been in the United States on a diplomatic visa, an A1, A2, a G1, a G2, there is something known as Section 13 adjustment of status. I have done these cases before, but they're basically for diplomats who are inside of the United States that can't return to their country because they have a compelling reason that prevents them from being able to do so. And that compelling reason generally means there's been a regime change of some kind, and if they go back, their life would be in danger. So that's also an option. They normally give out very few of those every year, I think about 50. That's what it was. I don't know if it's changed, but that's an option. So this information that I'm giving is extremely general. None of the information that any of us are giving is supposed to be taken as legal advice. It's just general information. For any case-specific questions that you may have, it really is important to speak with an attorney to get correct advice on how your particular situation needs to go forward. I just want to check my notes to see if there's anything else I wanted to share.
Mariam John, while you're doing that, I just wanted to point something out because this is a question that I get. You cannot file for asylum for someone outside of the country. Asylum can only be filed for inside the United States or inside the country that you're seeking asylum in. So if you're in Afghanistan or if you have family in Afghanistan, you can't apply for asylum from outside the United States. You have to be inside the United States. So I just wanted to make that clear because I get that question a lot.
Yeah, that's true. So there's actually a difference between asylum and being a refugee. I mean, you have to prove the same thing, but you have to get refugee status outside of the United States. So you come into the US as a refugee, but if you're inside of the United States and you're afraid to go back to your country, the way in which you achieve that refugee status or asylee status is by applying for asylum. So asylum is applied for from inside the United States, and then refugee status is sought abroad, and you enter as a refugee. I don't have anything else that I want to add on my end, and what we can do, if my other panelists are okay with it, I'd be happy to go through the questions that people have been asking, and maybe we can go ahead and start answering some of those. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to I guess, give a few takeaways before we proceed to that, because I know there's a lot of people from the community listening in on this. I think one thing that we can all do, and I think that one thing that Afghans inside Afghanistan can do right now, like, I know it's almost like an impossible ask, but I just feel like if we are able to do this, if we're able to come together and do this, I think we can get a lot more people evacuated. We need order at the airport. It's just complete chaos there right now. And if you guys are talking to your family, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we can put some sort of advocacy effort or something together. But we need some sort of order at the airport, because if it is being, if things are the way that it is right now, like the complete chaos and madness that's going on there right now, they're not going to be able to get out as many people as they want to get out. And they can get out a lot of people. They have the resources to do so. They want to. It's just that people that are showing up there without documents, people that are not qualified, are preventing people that actually are on the priority categories to get evacuated. If they are able to get everyone out, the U.S. citizens, the LPRs, people with the approved immigrant visas, the SIVs, they can get other people out. They have the room, they have the capacity to also get out other people. So if there's something that we can do, or that we can come together as a community to help the situation over there, I think we just need to figure out, I don't know, like I said, realistically, I don't know how it's going to be done, but I think just some order at the airport would really, really help the situation. Because aside from the Taliban, harassing these people on the way to the airport and assaulting them, there are mobs that are beating each other up, and people are getting trampled on, children are getting trampled on. So I just think that's doing more harm than benefiting us in any way or benefiting any people. So if we can, as a community, brainstorm to figure out some way that we can, get that to happen over there, I think that would go a long way. And then also the humanitarian parole, we need to lobby for that, and we need to push for that from inside the United States. Because like Adam said, it is something that can be done. It's possible. It's been utilized in situations like this in times of crisis. So for people that don't meet the priority categories, that's the only way to get everyone out. But we have to push for it from over here. Go ahead, Maija.
And there's just this one question that just came up. She said she wants to know if we could repeat the text message number that Shekebe John created. That text number is 52886. It literally takes less than 1 minute. You text crisis to 52886, and there's a very specific letter that will get sent to your congressman in the White House that makes a significant requests for protecting Afghans here in the United States and helping evacuate Afghans abroad, and also helping us create more specialized programs for Afghan nationals to have expedited processing and more streamlining in their cases. So, and one thing I did want to add too, I'm going to throw this out there for her. She is actually trying to meet with every single congressional representative that she can. So right now she's looking for people who want to help her get in meetings with congressmen. So if you live in a specific district, if you reach out to her, what she's going to do is she's going to give you everything that you need to know to set up a meeting with your congressional official. And then you'll go in that meeting with her, and you'll introduce yourself, and she'll take it from there. But that's her goal. She's planning on doing this with every single congressional official. I sat in on a meeting with her yesterday. That's how I had that meeting with Congressman Connolly. And she was amazing. She had stats. She had all kinds of information that she presented to them, and they were able to give us some very helpful information. So that's the way that we need to push this along, is by them seeing our faces, hearing our names, because these types of in-person meetings are what's really going to push them to do these types of things that we want them to do. So if you want to get in touch with her, if you live in Northern Virginia or California, Texas, wherever, you can help her facilitate that, and that will help with some of the advocacy on this side. So I was just going to go through some of the questions that you guys have been asking, and I'll pose it to some of the to the panelists to see if maybe we can all try to answer this. What advice do you have for someone who's already in the U.S. that came in on an SIV with brothers and sisters now in danger because of them? How do we evacuate them?
Adam, did you want to take that on?
Sure. I mean, so again, I'm going to keep harping on this difference between, and again, I just want to express my sympathy for anybody who's dealing with this, but I want to again stress the difference between evacuation and some kind of pathway to the U.S. So there are generally, and my colleagues are more expert in this than I am, but ways to apply or petition to have family members come into the U.S. There's an I-130 process. There are several family reunification processes. The problem is they generally take years in order for that to actually happen. Unless we're talking about like Sharifa said,
some of the advocacy on this side.
I'm sorry.
I think there was a glitch.
Okay. There's also things like humanitarian parole, which again, these are very difficult. These are very, they have a low rate of success, humanitarian parole applications, and they require a sponsor, and there's a process involved with that. And I'm sure Sharifa can talk more about that. It's also the quickest way. Humanitarian parole can happen very quickly, but it doesn't bestow a status. It's a temporary allowance to enter the U.S. But in terms of, I think the question was actually about evacuation, and that question, I don't think anyone knows the answer to that right now, because the scene at the airport is so chaotic. It's completely unclear. I mean, there seems to be a general effort to prioritize U.S. citizens, green card holders, immigrant visa holders. Then after that, we get into groups like SIV applicants, people who don't have visas but who are somewhere in the application process, people who are protected or fit into these P2 categories maybe. And then so if potentially people who are family members of U.S. citizens or LPRs or I-130 applicants, they could be somewhere on the list, but we just don't know. The answer to how to get somebody evacuated from Afghanistan right now is an impossible question. And I understand why so many people have it, because it's a perfectly reasonable question to ask. But again, I think that just speaks to the importance of continuing to pressure the Biden administration to evacuate all at-risk Afghans. I think we're past that. We should be, given that, that the administration wants to be gone in 11 days, I think we should be past the point of having to do any kind of vetting in terms of like immigration statuses or drawing arbitrary lines between people in the SIV process. The effort now should be to get everyone possible out of Afghanistan to safety and worry about the processing once everyone is safe.
Another question that we have is, can someone apply to various programs simultaneously, like P1, P2, and SIV at once, or will that create a problem?
So sorry, I'm just gonna hop in and take that.
That's your department, so.
Well, so really, I mean, typically the only one of those that you can actually apply for is the SIV program. So for this P2 program for Afghans, you have to be referred by an NGO or media organization. And basically people who are in the SIV pipeline are essentially excluded from this P2 program just by its terms. And P1 referrals, whether that's from UNHCR or it's from the embassy or from somewhere else, so you don't have to worry about that in terms of because you're only going to be applying to the SIV program. I also think you generally shouldn't worry about that because there's no way for you to know which one of those things is going to succeed and which one isn't, and which one is going to be faster than the other. So I don't think you should be concerned about being, potentially being eligible for multiple pathways at once.
And this question was asked a couple of times, but the question was, can you give information about the P2 designation, specifically which family members you can add?
Sure. So the P2 that was announced by President Biden covers spouses and children of any age, regardless of whether they're married or not. So not siblings, not parents, not grandparents. We assume that it would also, because it covers married children, we would assume that it also covers grandchildren, but it does not say that. But so we're absolutely sure that it covers spouses and children of any age, regardless of marriage status.
Okay. And we have another question here that says, I have many family members still in Afghanistan and I fear for their future. I have a female cousin who's a teacher. Her school has been threatened numerous times. Her husband is paralyzed due to a medical condition and she doesn't work. Her life is in danger because she's a female and a teacher. And if she cannot work there, there's no one to bring income. Is there any possible chance we can apply for her?
Yeah, so I think a situation like that, or when you're in a circumstance like that, I think warrants humanitarian parole. There's no, like Adam said, we don't have a magic wand. There's no magic visa for us to, we know, like right now, a majority of the people that are in Afghanistan, there's a lot of people that worked with the government. There's a lot of women there. And everyone is very vulnerable. There's a lot of people that are high risk. So there's no, like I said, there's no magic visa for us to be able to apply for these people and try to get them out. Right now, there's no consulate, there's no embassy. So even for us to even apply for anything from here, it's like, how do we even get it over there? So the only realistic option, or the only option that we see, is humanitarian parole. And like Adam said, this has been done before by the government. In other situations when there was a crisis, or there was, in times of war before, they've done it with other countries. They can do it. The law allows for it. It's just a matter of the administration. It's just a matter of Department of Homeland Security and Department of State coming together and recognizing, okay, that this is something that people are going to be applying for. We need to expedite it and we need to approve it. So that's why I and my colleagues and the folks at AILA, we're stressing for this. We're pushing for this because this is really the only way that we see people getting out on an emergency basis, out of Afghanistan, being evacuated on an emergency basis. Otherwise, there's nothing else in place to get people, high risk, vulnerable people, out of the country.
I just wanted to add one thing too. Obviously, logistically speaking, it is challenging to get people on a flight, but if your relative is somebody that you're very worried about and you want to bring them over here, you can go ahead and start the humanitarian parole process. Sure, there may not be a way to bring them here at this very moment, at this very time, but in the coming days, in the coming weeks, maybe even a month, I hope, and I have some faith, I'm trying to have faith still, that our administration will come up with processes and procedures to be able to help these people. And so it's worth still considering trying to file, because then you can at least be a step ahead, if that makes sense, and get your case filed and pending. That way you're not waiting until it actually does come out as a process and filing at that time. So that's one recommendation I've been making to people, and humanitarian parole can be processed pretty quickly. When an attorney files it, they can get a receipt within a day if they do an expedite request. And I've heard from other practitioners that they've been getting their receipts within less than a day for humanitarian parole. In the general time frame, it takes about 3 months, because I've done these before for citizens of other countries. And sometimes when you ask for it expedited, it can be done pretty quickly. But again, disclaimer, logistically, we can't confirm or guarantee that that person will actually be able to get on a flight with that humanitarian parole document. So I'll go to the next question. I'm sorry, it looks like here. If someone is in another country and received that visa for their spouse and child underage, can they take them to the USA with that visa that the US Embassy in Kabul sent to them?
What do they mean?
So I think this question is asking if someone is not in Afghanistan, but they're in a third country and they have a visa for their spouse and child, can they take that to the US that the embassy in Kabul sent them? So I think basically what they're asking is if they're in a third country, how can they proceed on their case? And I guess it depends on where you are in your case. So if you're somebody who got your visa put in your passport, theoretically, you can travel to the United States. You just need to get there. But if you're somebody who has a pending immigrant visa case, let's say you haven't had your interview, but you submitted all your documents and you were waiting for an interview, and you're in a third country, one thing you can do is actually ask your case to be transferred from Kabul to the third country that you're in. I've actually been doing that for some of my own clients who are in Pakistan right now. We had a few immigrant visa cases there, and we're asking them to be transferred to Pakistan at the embassy in Islamabad to have that processing go forward. So that is one option for people to finish the consular processing case in their third country by having the case transferred there. I think that's what the question was asking. I'm sorry if that wasn't it. And then the next question is, what can I do if I'm a US citizen and I have my sons over 21 in Afghanistan? How can I get them out of Afghanistan?
Assalamu alaikum, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yeah, my camera's on and I don't know why it's on. Sorry, I just wanted to join. Go ahead. If there's any question I can answer. The camera's on, but it's not showing.
I think, what that question, there's no priority category for, it depends on the status of your children. If they're 21 and you didn't file any kind of petition for them, if they don't have a green card or anything, I think they just, they just fall in the class of people who, if there's some exigent, if they have some circumstance that, like some medical condition or something like that, we can file humanitarian parole. But I think other than that, there's not, unless like you have, they have some sort of LPR status or something like that, there's nothing else that can be done.
Well, they are a U.S. citizen. It says I'm a U.S. citizen and my son's over 21. So technically, I think if an I-130 has been filed, then that's the route that you would want to go through. If it hasn't been filed, you could go ahead and file one, maybe ask for an expedite on that to be approved. But there is something called the visa bulletin where there are preference categories of different types of relatives. So if you're filing for a child who's over 21 as a United States citizen, there's a significant wait for those visas to become available. Those waits are anywhere from 7, 8, 9 years. I don't have the visa bulletin in front of me, but they're significant.
So like 15 years.
Yeah, 15 years. There you go. So if it's that kind of wait, let's say you filed the I-130 for your relative, my advice would be, so if you're a U.S. citizen, file an I-130 for your son. Try to get it approved. And what you can do in the meantime is the humanitarian parole. You could ask for your son to come to the United States under a ground of humanitarian parole. And then you can renew that parole every year. Parole is generally given for 1 year at a time. It's temporary. It's not permanent, but what you can do is renew that parole so that they could essentially, theoretically, wait until that category becomes available. We did have one attorney in one of the meetings that John and Sharika John and I were on, who was able to extend parole for her client for many years. I've done it for one of my clients about 2-3 years, but she was able to do it for one of her clients for 10 years. So it's possible. There's a lot of legal ways in which attorneys can assist. But again, with the logistical situation in Afghanistan and actually physically getting someone out, that's all something we can't help with. But that would be the legal solution, I think, in that situation.
That's long-term solution. So if everyone is like looking to get someone out in the next week or so before the U.S. withdrawal, I personally only see humanitarian parole as an option for the people that are not on the priority category.
Yeah. One thing I would add, and I'm sorry I'm jumping in, but I just heard that India airline is going to presume on the 21st based on the situation. It's fluid. It's not 100% clear, but if security is okay, there's going to be other flights going. So I know that India has said that they're giving a number of e-visas. So if somebody's able and they're desperately getting out, if they can get an e-visa to India, on my law office website, I put the information for where you fill out the form to apply for the e-visa. You can apply for an e-visa, get to India, and then maybe have some form of relief to eventually migrate to the U.S. That's the hopeful, wishful thinking. But if the U.S. is not feasible and you need to get out, maybe consider another place that's feasible once the airlines presume.
I think there's a whole host of countries that have now allowed e-visa and visa on entry or on arrival for Afghans.
Yeah, so if
Including-
the US is impossible, look at those visas.
Yeah.
We have another question. Is it possible for green card holders to bring parents to the US? So,
yeah, go ahead, sorry. Go ahead.
So through a family-based petition, no, it's not possible to bring your parents as a green card holder. You have to be a United States citizen to do that. But if you're asking that question, obviously through for like humanitarian parole reasons, for example, sure. I mean, green card holders can be financial sponsors for the humanitarian parole process for their relatives in Afghanistan. So again, this is a legal option that one may have, but no, green card holders cannot petition through the family-based process directly for their parents. They have to be a United States citizen. And then another question we have is, what sort of evidence would you need for the humanitarian parole?
So right now, the evidence that we are submitting in a lot of, you need to submit, country conditions evidence. Like in a situation like this, we're submitting, situation like news reports and things like that to basically to account for what's going on the ground. And then if we have any evidence that's personal to the client, like if somebody is an SIV case, if somebody is suffering from a medical condition, we're submitting evidence such as that. The other thing that I did want to mention is a letter from your congressman or your representative to support your application is also helpful in getting the humanitarian parole request approved.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that real quick. I mean, it's not written in the statute anywhere, but from some of the humanitarian parole applications that we've seen that have been successful, congressional involvement can matter a lot. Media attention can matter a lot. I mean, on some level, you're asking the U.S. government to, in its own discretion, admit this person. And putting a lot of political pressure on the government around certain applications or certain groups of people can be effective. And I do just want to, again, emphasize so there's kind of a difference between humanitarian parole on an individual case about an individual person versus these larger humanitarian parole programs they're still adjudicated case by case because the law requires that they be adjudicated case by case, but they create basically guidance in order to expedite, an entire category of parole applications. So there's the individual process where, you would fill out an I-131 and pay the filing fee and have a sponsor. But these programs, such as the parole program that allowed Vietnamese refugees to enter Guam in 1975, they weren't paying filing fees and having to fill out forms. The government in its discretion waived those requirements. So in terms of pressuring the administration or pressuring Congress, it doesn't have to just be about one individual case. It can be in order to create a parole program in order to protect an entire group of similarly situated people.
So one of the questions someone asked is, can you apply for humanitarian parole if you're not in Afghanistan currently? Yes, you can. You can apply anywhere you're at. But wherever you're at, it's going to take a long time to process it, like Sharifa John said, and Mariam John and Adam have said.
So another question we have too is, let's see, what should individuals who are currently in a second country and have ongoing cases do? When can they expect a reply from the State Department regarding their case? So I think this was kind of something that I was mentioning earlier. If you're in another country and you have a pending case, one of the things you can do is make a request for transfer from the embassy in Kabul to the embassy of the country that you're in and do your consular processing there. And that would make it a little bit more easy for you to come into the United States with your immigrant visa. So that's something that I'm doing in my office with a couple of the cases that I have. I don't know if anybody else wants to add on to that, but that's one thing that I can say. As far as the embassy from Kabul, and like they're right now, they're not an embassy, like they're just in the airport right now, and their sole goal right now is to help people leave the country. So they're not processing cases at all. But if you're in a second country, you can take advantage of that embassy's consular processing procedures. Where can we get the form I-131, please? That's the next question.
It's on the USCIS website. You can, if you go on the US, or if you just, let me just tell you guys. So if you just, it's at uscis.gov on their website, and then you can just search humanitarian parole. There will be instructions and the link to that form, to the form.
Just adding on there too, if you do decide you want to do something like this on your own, Sharifa mentioned the instructions. Every form on the USCIS website, every immigration form has an instructions PDF form, and they're very, very detailed instructions. So if you want to take this task on yourself, you have to read those instructions line by line. If you don't fill out the form the right way, or if you don't put in information correctly, or if you don't submit the original documents that they're asking for you or from you, your application can be rejected, which could result in more delays in your case. So humanitarian parole, it's a complex procedure. Try to get the assistance of like a legal services provider or organization who does them, an attorney, because it is a difficult process, and USCIS is strict on making sure that everything is filled out the right way. And then the next question is there any news on...
I'm sorry, Ma'am John, I just got a word like 2 minutes ago that if you're in the Bay Area, UC Davis Law School, their UC Davis Law School students will be doing the humanitarian parole. You can just Google UC Davis Immigrants Legal Clinic. I just got this about 20 minutes ago, texted to me, that you can go ahead and ask your assistant filling out the humanitarian parole or the SIV or the P program. The other program is PARS, P-A-R-S, PARS program, which is in the Bay Area also. Please Google it. I'm sorry, I don't have the information. Mariam John, we just have a few more minutes to wrap up. And so I don't know how many questions you want to take.
There's a couple more left. I'll try to, let me just see if I can just to get something here. So one of the, I did see this a couple of times. People were asking about how they can arrange a meeting with their local Congress leader. I had referenced Shakeba Murad, who's been spearheading that initiative. Her name is Shakeba Murad, and her email address is shakeba.murad, M-O-R-R-A-D, @gmail.com. She did give me the permission to share this information. You can email her directly, let her know what district you live in, and she'll help you get an in-person meeting with your congressman so that she can help with the advocacy side of things. Again, that's shekeba.morrad @gmail.com. She's really been fantastic on the advocacy side. So that's her information. And then I guess I can do one last question here. How do we ask for humanitarian parole to be expedited?
There's no set process for that. I think what we're just, we're making sure that we indicate that on the cover letter. We're attaching the letter from the congressman's office, and basically there's just indicating in a cover letter that this needs to be expedited on an urgent basis. Miriam, I know you've done this too, so if you want to give me
so if you want to expedite a humanitarian parole case, you actually have to write expedite in black ink on the form on the first page, and then a cover letter, just like Sharifa John said. And then one thing you can do is actually submit another immigration form on top of it. It's called a G1145. You send it to the DALLAS lockbox, USCIS DALLAS lockbox. There's an address for that on the USCIS website, and you can get a receipt on your humanitarian parole case pretty quickly through that. And there's also an email address, humanitarianparole@uscis.dhs.gov. You can send a copy of it there. But again, these are things that really an attorney should do for you if possible. But if you want to try to do it, that's the process and that's the procedure. Do you guys want to take any more questions, or is this something we're going to be concluding?
I have to hop off. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. And I hope we got most of your questions answered. And reach out to us, reach out to our offices if you guys need any further assistance. Have a great day.
I wanted to thank the Afghan-American community organization for providing this platform for us and for providing our community with accurate information. We hope that you found it useful in some way, and we know that It may not be, the answers that you wanted, but, everything is changing quietly. Thank you so much again to AACO and Omid John for leading this stream live. He said it was the first time he was doing it. You did an awesome job. I can't get myself on camera, but the rest of the guys are on. And Adam and Sharifa John and Mariam John, humbled to be joining you guys. May Allah bless you. May you continue to do, and may everybody else stay safe and well. Salamuna, Khudai Paman, Khudafiz, and have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for having us.
With that, I'm going to go ahead and end it, and take care, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.